it doesn't look as if the government knows what it's doing.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And I'd like to, first of all, if I may, put on record my support for this bill, where for me, I fully understand the huge amount of opportunities it presents for UK PLC. I don't accept those who believe this is actually a bill to strip away rights and hard-fought-for gains in various pieces of legislation. And those who do detract seem to forget that when the UK was part of the EU, legislation change was often led by this country for those very improved rights for all people in the EU, and it is because of this country's input that many pieces of these legislation are in place today in the EU. So on that basis, Mr. Deputy Speaker, there is no reason why we cannot enhance some of these laws further, and this bill will give us, as a nation, every opportunity to do so. I would like to ask, though, Mr. Deputy Speaker, from the Minister, if I may, that we ensure that when changes are made, that we take every opportunity to enhance laws beyond that which we currently see. And as well as doing that, can we ensure that we have a swift mechanism that when we don't get it right, because on some instances we won't get it right, that we can swiftly change to plug any loopholes. And today I just want to briefly highlight one sector which is being exploited, not by the Europeans, but by the far eastern countries as a result of us being too liberal, with good intention, I might add, from the outset after Brexit. Now, if you're currently a member of the Chartered Institute of Trademark Attorneys, CITMA, and you are EU qualified, but you currently do not reside in the EU, you cannot practice on EU trademarks in the EU, or in this country, for that matter. Now, when Brexit happened, the only criteria we adopted to represent a client here in the UK is that you have to have a UK address. So a different and changed criteria to what we traditionally operated under. And this change, and as I said earlier, whilst it had every intention of making the system more open, actually has brought huge unintended consequences with tens of thousands of additional applications clogging up the system. We see far eastern companies and others setting up a PO box in this country, which counts as having a UK address. Now, on the face of it, that doesn't seem to be an issue, until, of course, you need to contact them, which you cannot. Now, prior to Brexit, if a trademark was breached in this country, a company would employ a trademark attorney, who then would negotiate with the company or attorney of the company breaching the trademark or trying to apply for a similar trademark. An agreement generally would be reached before it having to go to court, and the cost to UK business was more of an irritant than a substantial cost. Now we have a multitude of PO boxes where a company's attorney can't even get a reply from an email from these so-called companies. This means it has to go to court on virtually every occasion. Not to mention, the cost of which to the UK company is many times more costly than used to be the case, not to mention the huge amounts of frustration and irritation which comes with the current process. Now, just to highlight, Mr. Deputy Speaker, how huge this is, these foreign-based firms with PO boxes now account for 39% of all UK trademark applications at the UK IPO, compared to just 19% prior to Brexit in 2019. Now, if we're not careful, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we will have a situation where trademark incentive industries, which, by the way, accounts for 770 billion to our GDP each year, may be completely undermined by what appears on paper to be a good change of legislation, but in reality has the ability to totally undermine the sector as a huge part of our GDP. Therefore, without taking the House's time any further, I'd like to ask the Minister to reiterate what safeguards will be in place to make sure unintended consequences like this, like is currently happening to the trademark and IP sector, do not happen going forward. And also, what can the Minister do to ensure that we have a system in place where legislation can be changed quickly, like in the case of CITMA, when we totally miss these unintended consequences. Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. Stella Creasy.